Call this meeting to order. The City Commission of Rio Grande City. It's Tuesday, May the 28th, 2019, approximately 5:05 p.m. here in Commission Chambers, City Hall, 5332 East US Highway 83, Suite A, Rio Grande City, Texas. This time we'll have the invocation by Commissioner Ramirez, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Jones.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to be here today to conduct city business. I ask you to please clear our minds so we can make the right decisions and move our city forward. I also ask that you keep our friend Sabas Quiroz and your thoughts and your prayers. He's going through some health issues, and in his name I ask that you grant him also the best health and please keep him healthy. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Next business and orders item 1B, roll call and finding of quorum.
Mayor Villarreal,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Garza. Mayor Pro Tem Garza is absent. Commissioner Flores. Commissioner Flores is absent. Commissioner Ramirez.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. Next business and orders item 1C, reading a proclamation. May is Historic Preservation Month. 1C. Proclamation Historic Preservation Month, whereas May is designated as National Preservation Month, co-sponsored by rgc-tv, the City of Rio Grande City, and the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability, and whereas Rio Grande City has been nationally recognized as National Main Street Community in this year 2019, and whereas Rio Grande City is a certified local government by the Texas Historical Commission, and whereas Rio Grande City is one of the most historic communities in Texas with more than 600 historic properties, and whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people. And whereas real preservation, restoration, and history is the theme for 2019 Preservation Month, sponsored by Rio Grande City Main Street Program. And now therefore I, Joel Villarreal, Mayor of Rio Grande City, on behalf of the City Commission, do proclaim May 2019 as Historic Preservation Month in Rio Grande City and call upon our families, businesses, and residents to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance. And to keep that on a note, our Main Street is nationally recognized once again, so kudos to all the participants and commission members and everyone that's part of it. Commissioner Jones is a huge part in Main Street program. So again, thank you, Mr. Perez, to all the staff to continue that effort. Again, that's consecutive years. And I'm sure it'll be a third next year as well, so it'll be a three-peat. Is that the correct term?
Basketball.
All right, so we'll continue. But again, thank you for all of you and everyone part of the city. Next business and orders item 1D, departmental reports.
Mayor, in lieu of it being a long agenda, all the department heads said they don't have any major updates at this time.
All right.
Except we got one employee that needs to be recognized.
Okay, perfect.
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Evening.
Good evening.
We want to, usually this is always about office business, but we want to take time to acknowledge someone who had a great personal accomplishment. And a couple months ago when we came into office, we sat down with Mr. Garcia and we talked about some of the goals we wanted to accomplish. And one of his goals was to be able to get his GED so that he can get his licenses in being able to oversee some of the water departments in our facility. I stand here very proud and very happy because after a couple months of working hard and working his tail off, he officially got his GED, and we wanted to take time to acknowledge him because he's very, very proud of this. And so,
Fantastic.
Very, very humble man. And Mo, I'm going to give you a gift because we just received notice literally 15 minutes before coming into this meeting that we passed last week's inspection, Mo. And it's definitely a major credit to him. He worked so hard to make sure that that facility was up along with Mr. Basan and all the other employees out there. So thank you very much, Mo. This is your present right here. So thank you.
Hey, we got to take a picture up here, so this is recognition. Absolutely. And just to continue on that note, when you have personal accomplishments, that also goes a long ways for serving the city as well and the citizens and the residents. So again, for all the employees, just continue your education, continue your licenses, because at the end it's going to help us as well and help the community at large. So again, congratulations, and the news about TC Accuser and passing with excellent colors and notes. And just continue on that note, Mr. Cruz, thank you for being part of that. And to all your staff, again, thank you so much. I know TCQ is one of those things we got to continue always striving to make sure that we're in compliance with all the requirements. So again, thank you so much, and kudos to the department staff, Perez, and
That was
everyone
Mr.
that's
Cruz
involved.
and his staff. They actually spent probably 2 weeks straight prepping for that visit. And so I know they put a lot of hours and sweat into it in making sure. There were some minor things, but we're not talking anything spectacular that you can say, wow, we have major problems.
And again, I know we're going to have some of those minors and just address them
Sure.
in a timely manner and continue striving for that. I know with the upgrades to our tanks, that's another great opportunity for us to check it out, and getting rid of that nuisance, that $3 million nuisance too as well. So, and obviously there's some pros and cons on that note, but nonetheless, great work. Thank you. Anyone else?
That's it.
Moving on, we have item 2, consent agenda. Letter A, approval of departmental travel request. Letter 2B, approval of minutes from previous meetings. 2C, approval of action taken at the meeting of rgc-tv held on April 16, 2019. And 2D, approval of action taken at the meeting of the Kelsey Bass Museum and Event Center Commission held on April 24, 2019. This time, do we have a...
Mayor, if there's no objection, I move to approve all items consent agenda,
Okay.
2A, 2B, 2C, and 2D.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Consent agenda by Commissioner Ramirez, second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? Further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye opposed? Motion carries. If there's no objection, we're gonna move to item 6C, just city manager's report. 6C would be the presentation and acceptance of 2016-2017 financial audit of the city of Rio Grande City. No objection? Go ahead. That one? Oh. Just for the record, we have Commissioner Flores. Came in. President. Go ahead, Mr. Fleming.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Raul Hernandez. I am your auditor for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2017. Obviously, a lot of time has transpired since this fiscal year, so I will only highlight what I consider is the end results on the audit. Certainly, if you have any specific questions, feel free to ask as I discuss the audit. I'd like to begin on page 15, if you will. Everyone should have a copy of the audit. If not, there are extra copies here at the end. And real quickly on page 15, this is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. In layman's terms, this is your operating statement and the end results. At the very bottom of the first column is the general fund. You're going to note under description 1200, the net change in fund balances. This is the end result of revenues minus expenditures, and it shows a negative $352,218. You started the year with a fund balance of a negative $556,459. However, during the audit, we expanded the scope, we did extra analysis. Management also brought to our attention what they consider were corrections to the prior year audit. As a result, there's an increase of $828,946. So your ending fund balance is going to be a negative $79,731. That is a dramatic change, a favorable increase, again, resulting from management's oversight, their deep look into last year's balances with our assistance. Any questions on the general fund? Real quickly, the fund right next to that is your EDC, and that ended with a positive $1,585,115. All your other funds, which consist of special revenue, capital projects, again, what we identify as special revenue, those ended with $2,600,843. So, in total, you ended with a combined fund balances of $4,106,227. Questions? If not, real quickly, on page 19. So I just talked about what we consider governmental funds, general funds, special revenue, EDC. So now on page 19 is the end result of what we call proprietary funds. These are your water, sewer, and sanitation. The basis of this presentation is under full accrual. Full accrual is comparable to financial statements that any for-profit entity would present its financial statements. That being said, on page 19, again, the change in net position is an increase of $1,072,700. You started with a net position of $12,141,078. Here again, some increase prior periods and of a positive $167,741. So you ended with a net position of $13,381,519. Any questions? If not, lastly, on page 12.
You said page 12?
Page 12, yes, sir. Actually, this consists of pages 11 and 12. What you're looking at here is a combined city's financial statements, again, under full accrual.
Can we, before you get there,
Yes.
can we go back and acknowledge, I believe Mr. Cantu did an excellent job, and because his tenure here and more internal knowledge of how things were being recorded, he was a key player in identifying those million in that transaction.
Oh, yes, he was. That one in particular. What he's talking about is there was an adjustment made in last year's audit to your debt service fund, which resulted in giving it a $2 million fund balance at the end of the year. The offset reflected a due from other funds. In other words, it reflected balances, internal balances owed from other respective funds. That would have meant that the debt service payments paid by the debt service were made on behalf of the other funds, close to $2 million. However, he brought it to our attention, we looked at it. When I first learned about this, I really found it hard to believe that debt service had $2 million in it, when in fact, your annual debt service is approximately $600,000 per year. So another thing was, had it paid these monies, it would have meant at the beginning, it should have had $2 million to pay it on its behalf. So that was not the occurrence. The result was to correct the financial statements. And again, the correction would have been considered prior period to last year's financials, not affecting this year's, but affecting the end result of the fund balance to the debt service. He did spend a lot of time researching this. We spent time. I came and visited with him personally. We looked at it. So I wanted to be sure that we were going to make such a large adjustment to the prior year financial statements. So they were made.
Correct.
Now, the end result now is that your debt service has about $600,000, enough to satisfy the current year requirements for 2018. Obviously, 2018 has already passed us. You have made those payments. So, again, you're right, giving him credit for that effort. Questions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Cantu. Excellent.
I will note that we had an abundant amount of adjustments, about 160, but many of them were his. But moving into 18, we've been working closely to try to reduce that. And I did ask him for his numbers prematurely before he actually closes out the year, because we want to get started and help him along to get 18, current, because Mr. Perez here, he's urging me to get it done, within the next 2 months, or at least by beginning of August. So.
Yes, sir.
11 and 12, I just want to note that this is labeled the statement of activities. This is merely an income statement, okay? At the bottom of page 12, I just want to note, again, your change in net position, the first column on page 12, well, that's a negative 178,930. The one to the right of that is a positive 1,072,700. A total of $893,770. Now, you can say this is the city's profit because it's on a full accrual basis. So the city made a profit in 2017. Now, I know you have bond advisors coming in talking about the refunding. We visited a little bit outside, we know each other. So, hopefully the numbers will be sufficient or adequate that you can move forward with that. At the bottom of page 19, again, the first column, the city had $12,332,968 of net worth, if you will. It's identified as net position, but you can say it is the equity of the net worth. The business type or the enterprise had $13,381,519,000. In total, $25,714,487. Any questions? Pretty much the findings that we're presenting are comparable to the prior year, obviously, because you're still catching up from the problems that existed about 3 years ago. You're still catching them up, catching up the books, catching up the audits, but the findings really not to his detriment, but as time moves forward, these findings will either eliminate or certainly be minimal moving forward. So
And really, that's the goal, is whatever findings we have to address them, and then that way we can move forward from here on out.
I think the biggest improvement is that you hired the fixed asset company to come in here and inventory your fixed assets, along with our help, along with Mr. Cantu's help. We were able to inventory fixed assets to our satisfaction. You might remember your opinion last year was qualified for that matter. This year it isn't. So that is a drastic improvement because of his effort, fixed asset management's work, and certainly we did assist. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, and again for the work that you're doing, and I know that we're moving forward on the next years as well, so, but thank you. Anything we can do, please, of course, Mr. Cantu, Mr. Perez, to make sure that we're in line with everything that we need to. And again, the goal here is to make sure that we improve for the following years as we move forward, so any suggestions you have, we certainly welcome them, so we can make sure that we maintain our books accurate and up to date. So, thank you. Be safe on the way back, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, business and orders, item 3, items for consideration.
Mayor, you have to accept the audit.
Motion to
My-
approve.
Okay, a mistake. All right, do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 6C, to accepting the audit, the 2016-2017 financial audit of the city of Rio Grande City by Commissioner Ramirez.
I second.
We have a second by Commissioner Flores. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? Motion carries.
I got some magic here. I got yours. These are yours.
Well, somebody's here.
Yes?
Thank you, sir.
Oh, no.
There's
Cal,
probably somebody's here.
they're yours.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Villarreal.
Oh, it's a nice GMC here. I'll take it.
Well, they paid me.
All right, moving on, thank you. Moving on back to item 3, which is letter A, hold a discussion and provide staff direction on the City of Rio Grande City sign ordinance. 3A,
This was an item that Mr. Jones had asked, so we can get some direction from you guys on
Alright.
sign ordinances.
so where are we? So is someone presenting, or who do we, Mr. Jones, what do you?
Well, I just wanted to get clarification on where we're at. I was under the understanding, when it came down to political signs, that basically our main goal was to try to limit the advertisement of the political signs, 4 months prior to an election. And now it was brought to my attention that now if you go out and you advertise on a so-called permanent sign, you can start whenever you want to. It doesn't have a limit when we can basically try to regulate the signs, and my intention is not to violate any people's right or take any
Right.
people's rights. But I'm just trying to make it right. If somebody wants to run for office, they're gonna be at the same advantage, that they can start at the same time, because now if you got money, you can go big, you can start whenever you want to. If you don't have money, you're left at a disadvantage, so I don't think that's right. I've been there, done that, been at the bottom, and I don't think the playing field's right now, I think we created something where we're giving somebody an advantage to be able to start early. And I just want to make the playing field right for everybody, and I don't think that this is what I wanted. What is being done right now, I don't think it's what I wanted. I just want it corrected. I just want the playing field done right. I just want a little bit of sign control, you know, because I think that everybody will agree with me that, you know, it was a disaster, the last election, that, you know, we had signs, you know, every 5 feet, you know, and people were actually complaining. And, you know, my intentions of this, is not to try to violate anybody's rights, but to try to get some sort of control on when you can put political signs up and when they need to be brought down. And I just want that to be corrected in the best way possible, and I confronted, you know, Ms. Beas and Mr. Milan Gilbert, and I told them to look into the ordinances in McAllen. We always look into McAllen and Edinburgh, and why not now? You know, and try to get some guidance from over there, because they have control. They're doing something right, because, you know, I don't see anybody suing anybody over there. So there must be doing something right, that everybody can start at the same time and finish at the same time.
Well, let's start with the premise. What was the premise as to why we decided to go under that city ordinance? One was to
Reduce the clutter.
reduce the clutter, which was, you know, it was horrendous. And then the amount of time as to how long these signs are gonna be up, which in this case is gonna be over a year, which was the whole premise behind that. Now, we didn't address it then in the last city ordinance because we only worked on
Temporary.
temporary
Yeah.
signs.
The ordinance you all passed last time had to do with temporary signs in the historical area in the city of Rio Grande, okay? Not with permanent signs.
So we didn't-
The issue with the permanent signs that you have here, you know, I know McAllen and Edinburgh is mentioned, but those cities have zoning. You don't have zoning here. Right now, a private person that owns a lot in Rio Grande, within the city limits, can get a permit from your planning department and put up a sign and rent it. And put up political signs, vote for X, Y, or Z, or, you know, come and buy at X store or whatever.
And that's happening a lot here in downtown.
Well, I think that might be the concern. If that's a concern, we can start by saying the city doesn't have zoning, because how are you gonna regulate residential areas, okay, commercial areas, industrial areas? And that's why you have the signs going up everywhere. So what we addressed last time was temporary signs.
Okay, so how do we regulate that? Because you can't just put whatever sign up there either, because doesn't that have certain requirements to put up a sign? There's gotta be certain, just like when you build a house, there's certain ways to do it too. Isn't that the same thing with signs, or do we just whatever
Well, that's
sign,
what-
whatever tall, or how do we regulate that?
That's more with your building permits. And
Right.
people go get a building, for a building sign and they'll do it. That's the way you issue a permit. Now, can you restrict future signs? Yes, you can, okay, in the future. But we're gonna have a problem with the signs that are already up, okay?
But so let's say, I know one of the things budgetary wise this year that we're working on is the zoning, having a zoning in Rio Grande. At a cost, obviously, that's gonna be proposed through the budget process with Mr. Milan. So let's say, you know, October 1, you know, we get the budget and it's approved and we can go do the zoning, I don't know what the time frame it is. Could, from that point forward immediately?
Correct.
that could
You
be-
can start restricting those signs popping up in private property
Or
lots.
commercial, yeah.
Correct. And then we can start dealing with the old signs that are up, but it's gonna require you having a signboard basically, because people have some kind of interest of value on those signs they put up. They're gonna be grandfathered in, and if you wanna remove them, it's gonna take some.
Okay, but help me are we talking about residences, or are we talking about any?
Well, I'm talking about residential once you have zoning. I think is that the concern?
Well, my concern is signs going up on residential properties.
Yeah, and that's what I figured that would be your concern. And right now, there's nothing to limit them. All they have to do is go get a permit, and they'll put one up. But like Mr. Pettis said, if you start zoning or you work on zoning, then from the moment, let's say October 1st, you can start restricting future signs on coming up on residential properties. You can limit that. You can restrict that. Not on commercial areas, but on residential.
So how would you address commercial areas? Because I think that's also an issue. If somebody has a commercial lot.
Well, my problem is where it looks like a nuisance is those pole signs going up everywhere.
There are
That's
too
basically
many
what you're
everywhere,
seeing.
bottom line. you're
Everybody's
seeing-
looking into doing that now and making money off of it, and we're just letting them,
Correct.
you know.
Without
And we
any
go
type
back-
of
Without
regulation.
no insurance, no, you know,
Engineering.
engineer,
right.
nada,
What are the
nada.
requirements to
Consigo
build
unos
it?
postes y voy y los pongo ahí.
Well, I mean, I understand those signs, those people have to get permits.
Right, so,
So, I mean, yeah, you can start restricting again, like I said, in the future. But if you're gonna restrict that right now without zoning, I mean, let's assume Whataburger wants to put a sign on a new location. You're gonna have to be very careful, because you don't have commercial zone or residential zone. So not only are you gonna restrict, if you pass something right now without zoning, not only are you restricting the person that has a private lot, you're restricting the future businesses that might come down. And
Well,
what's
but if
what's
they-
good for
if-
one, it's gonna be good for everyone.
Yeah, if something is done engineered wise, you know, that's done professionally, I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with those people that are going and just agarrando tres postes and cuatro postes and just putting them up, and they're right on the side of the sidewalks, you know, and there's no control over it. You know, I just, you know, we need to find some sort of control over construction wise.
Right now, if you got 10 residents on a block, and all 10 go and apply for a permit, and they'll put 3 or 4 posts, like you say,
Yeah.
and put plywood, there's no restriction, okay? You're gonna get them.
Yeah.
Because all they need is a permit from the city. But that's where you start again saying, this is residential area, and we're gonna restrict that. You're not gonna be able to do that. This is commercial, and in commercial property, this is what's gonna be required.
okay, so then let's explore that, for example. I mean, whenever somebody's gonna build a shed outside that's gonna affect somebody's neighbor, I mean, we take into consideration that as far as before we issue out a permit, right? So what are we looking at when we're issuing out these permits for those? Do we say, yes, put it up, or do we say, wait a minute, you need to meet this?
As a matter of fact, because of the rising issues with permanent signs, we stopped issuing permits to permanent structures until we get a certified letter from an engineer certifying that it can withstand speeds of 100 miles an hour at least.
Well,
That's what
because
we-
they're hazards, I mean, especially if
Yes.
they're ill-conceived and situated, I mean, it can create some hazardous situations too for not just the residents, but of the house or the owners, but also the people around there.
Correct.
And especially if they're just putting these tall poles without anybody supervising it, so that's become an issue for safety as well, not just, like I said, for the owners, but people in general that are passing by. So you are looking into that now?
Yes,
Before.
and also we, as a matter of fact, this morning I was talking to colleagues from the city of McAllen, and he told me how to start the zoning maps for the city of Rio Grande. We already have an old ordinance that we've had forever. We just, the actual work has never been completed due to budgetary issues, obviously.
So, Mr. Milan, you stopped issuing permits, but what happens to the ones that are already there? Are you requiring them to provide you something from an engineer?
Correct. That we already had one that they said, well, you know, we obviously this needs to comply with international building codes.
And are they required to maintain insurance?
Yes.
Like, what happens if you have there's like a strong wind and one of those signs falls onto the street and onto a car? Who's liable for that?
Property owner.
And do they know that?
Yes.
And do you verify that they do have insurance?
Well, again, some of them, like Mr. Villarreal said, some of them are grandfather per se, due to the existence of those signs. But then somebody shows up, like there's one that right next to a restaurant that everybody has seen, and we actually had to call those people and say you need to provide proof of insurance and some type of guarantee that that's going to withstand those wind speed.
So what you're saying is that if those signs are grandfathered, then we can't require them to abide by the, you know, having engineering specs, insurance and all that? We can't require them to, you know, like at least come up to spec? For the safety, of course, of the...
We had also an expert opinion from maybe an engineer and then give us the equivalent as to existing signs.
Well, let's begin with, does everybody that erected these signs, did they get a permit?
Well,
Because there are some that probably didn't get a permit.
Correct.
So what are we doing about those that did not get a permit?
Again, we're in a case, some of them are still also pending litigation at the municipal court.
And who would be grandfathered, because most of these signs are fairly new.
Say, for example, there's one by the Rollins Flower Shop that has been there for quite a while. And actually, the family, they get an allowance because of that sign. And there's also pending contracts with the people who lease those spaces. We had to take it to legal to consider all those issues.
I mean, my suggestion is we can work with management here and the city manager and your staff onto how the fastest and quickest way is try to limit the future, those that are coming in the future. And then see how zoning is gonna affect the ones that are already up, okay?
But can we address the ones that never really came for a permit? I mean, because those obviously did whatever they wanted to. And then there were some that were permitted. The permitted ones will be a little more complicated because
Correct.
we permitted them. But the
Correct.
ones that never were permitted, how can we push those through?
Well, depending on when they were placed, when they were put up, and when the ordinance came in, or the permitted issue came up, and we'll deal with that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's gonna be more complicated, but if you want a quick, fast resolution to stop what's going out there, is let's work on something for the future, and then we can work backwards and see who's grandfathered in, who's not, what would it take to remove them? I mean, it's a process, a procedure, but if you don't act on it, they're just gonna continue popping up.
Well, we need to take some type of action, obviously. At this point is, like you said, I agree with what you're suggesting there. But what do you all think? I mean, at this point, what's the direction we want to?
I just want, I honestly, I don't have any hurry in it, Mayor. I just want to get it controlled before it gets out of hand. So, if Cal's saying this work, we can stop it from moving forward. I don't have a problem with that. All I want is control.
And
There's gotta be some sort of control on it.
I have more of an issue on the liability perspective of it, because we're allowing them, they're very big, and we don't even know if they are required to maintain insurance, whether they do have insurance, and if not, guess what they're coming after?
So why don't we make it part of the application process, that they have to show proof? And that's the easiest and quickest on the application side. So you can't be permitting
Correct.
if they're not showing proof, liability-wise, and that the structure is built or engineered and verified, that it will withstand, 100 miles or 150 mile
Yes.
hour winds.
And why not restrictions on residential properties?
That's where the zoning comes in.
Correct.
Yeah, we got a zone. Are those permits lifetime, or they're a year, 2 years? How does that work?
No, again, just like a home, they had to meet the residential codes or international building codes. And we see some things that is substandard. We already had 2 signs that failed. Thank God there was nothing right next to it. One is on Main Street, and the other one, well, actually both of them on Main Street. They both failed, no damages to
But do they expire once you permit them?
They had to pay, there's a $10 license fee that they had to pay per year, and that they has to be renewed.
Yeah, that was my question, to verify the insurance aspect as well.
Correct.
Right.
And again, this is for permanent structures. The temporary sign ordinance that was recently passed, that, as you can see, is working so far so good. You don't see and the word is out there.
So let's say we update the application and you require that they show proof of insurance and that we're talking the permanent ones.
Yes.
And so now we have a new requirement on the form and the permitting side, and let's say they have to pay a 10-year fee every year. Do you re-inspect them, and then we go back and say, hey, you're not meeting the requirement?
You can
Yes.
update your application. You say,
Okay.
let's assume it's a $10
Right.
yearly fee, and that they're gonna get inspected, and
Right.
if they don't pass inspection, they're in violation.
Part of the inspection would be that you meet the requirements.
Correct.
You have insurance, and is it engineered properly?
What's the amount of insurance that we're gonna be requiring them?
I would have to confirm with the ordinance. I'm not sure on the details, on the dollar amount, but I'm pretty sure it's at least $1 million.
But it's based on size probably? and-
Yes.
Okay. So do we need direction from them to update the application?
No, I mean, not to update.
We're not
the
going to change the ordinance, correct?
You can't do anything right now. Basically, the commission will instruct you to work on it, and then we can put it for a vote on the next meeting.
Okay.
So we might have something on the zoning, or how long
Yes.
is it gonna take the zoning?
Actually, we started up a process this coming fiscal year. It could take at least a year and a half.
How many do we need on the board? Or committee, or what is it that we need for the zoning purpose?
Just at least 5 members.
Once you do the zoning, obviously you can restrict the signs. And then work backwards. For example, those who are in violation, you can start removing, you have some grounds to start. But unless you start with the, updating the application, working on zoning, then you can start backwards.
We already started talking to engineers, and we're getting a couple of quotes, per se, and talking to members of the American Planning Association also.
But right now, what we can do is go back and upgrade the permitting process and what's on the application. That's a more permanent, well, not permanent, but a faster take on this, and then start addressing it from a
Correct.
larger perspective, okay. All right, so have a motion then?
No, you don't. You
There's a
can't
motion
vote.
at this
It's
point?
just discussion.
Can't they rescind?
Instruct you. Huh?
But can't they rescind the permit that they have already given?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so at this time, there's no action then.
Or modifying
Okay, same thing for item 3B, discussion, staff direction on City of Rio Grande's historic sign ordinance, which the same thing applies. Yes? No action then, this time. 3A and 3B, moving on to item 4, ordinance, letter A, discussion and possible action to approve ordinance 2019-1, authorizing the issuance of the City of Rio Grande City, Texas combination tax revenue refunding bond series 2019.
Mayor, for this one, I believe you have to discuss 6A. No, I'm sorry,
You can discuss 6E.
6E.
So we'll be discussing 4A and 6E.
6E.
Discussion and possible action to approve a plan of finance for the City of Rio Grande City combination tax and refund bond series 2019.
Correct.
So it's 4A and
6E.
6E.
If you take any action, they have to be done separately.
Okay, so it's gonna be 4A, 6E, and 7A, in that order.
All right, so again, 4A,
What
6,
order does it
6E?
6E,
6E,
need? Okay, the first one is gonna be 6E,
7A,
7A,
and then 4A.
and then 4A. So we would go to 6E first.
6E, 7A, and 4A.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor Villarreal, good to see you, members of the commission. Mr. Perez, my name is Miguel de los Santos. I'm with Estrada Hinojosa and Company. We're privileged to have served as your financial advisor for a long time. I am privileged to have served as financial advisor to the school district or the representative of Estrada Hinojosa and Company for the last 20 years. And we are here before you. We've been working with Mr. Perez and Mr. Cantu on trying to understand the finances, and we found, or we discovered that you have an opportunity to refund some bonds that were passed here in 2007. Actually, there were 3 series of bonds passed in 2007. 2 of them are interest-free, so they're not refundable. The other one has a higher interest rate that in today's market, you can lower the interest rate and save a considerable amount of money in today's market. Presentation, I'm going to make a very brief presentation to you. And the thing is that to understand it, that the numbers we present to you are based on today's interest rates and the market today. It could change in the next 5 or 6 months. We think it's imperative, especially because you have had issues with your audits. I mean, you just approved your 2017. We have worked very closely in the past in other situations with your auditor, Mr. Hernandez, and it looks like you're on a good trend from the presentation that he made tonight. so that we continue to work very closely with the district, and particularly as the audits are forming, because when we do go out to try to resell these bonds and save you over $1 million, we hope that your finances be in the best condition that they possibly can, because the rating agencies will be looking at your financial situation as a bank would look at any of us going to borrow money from them. So approving tonight's ordinance, Mr. Rick Perez is bond counsel will be doing the legal part with me from our firm is Bobby Villarreal. Like I said, I've been with the firm for 23 years. Bobby recently joined us. He was a right-hand man to Judge Ramon Garcia, County Judge in Edinburgh. So we'll be covering for each other. But the main thing the most important thing that we need to look at is probably page 3. And in page 3, what you're looking at the very top, it says that you have 2007 Series C. Remember I said you have A, B, and C. A and B are not refundable because they're already at 0% interest. C is right now at, if you look at the third line up from the bottom, they're out at an average of 5.148%. If you look at the next line, we believe under today's market, plus 25 basis points, which is a 1/4%, that you would get an average of 3.121% interest. And what we look at is in lowering that interest rate by going out on a refunding. We call it refunding in our personal lives, it's refinancing. People refinance their homes for lower interest rates. Then you would be saving a considerable amount of money. You would be refunding $6,870,000. You're actually taking out $7,180,000 and replacing them with $6,870,000, because when the bonds are issued, you get a premium. They give you more money, and you borrow less, and they give you more money actually. But the $7,180,000 goes off of your books. The percent of savings of refunded bonds today, if we were to do this under today's market, would be 17,755. And what that means is, if you don't do the refunding, then, and you continue to pay your bonds the way that you're paying them right now, you will have paid at the end of the amortization 17.75% more than what you need to pay. So generally, we recommend to commissions and to school boards that whenever there's a savings of at least 5%, it's usually worthwhile going out and doing the refunding, because either you get the money or the people that hold your bonds right now. The only people that don't want you to do this deal are the people that are invested in you, because they're invested in you at 5%. And if they buy your bonds again, they will be invested in you at 3%. So you save, we call the net present value savings is a savings of $1.2 million. And that is over a period of, I think it's 20 years. And the average annual savings is $79,000. Now, those are savings on your INS side or your tax rate. They're not for maintenance and operations, but they are monies. I heard the auditor say that you have in your budget right now $600,000, enough money to make your annual payment on the bonds that you have outstanding this year. This transaction would add $79,000 to that $600,000 every year for the next 20 years. It's basically what this refunding means. If there are any questions at this point, I'd be happy to address them. And if not, on the next page is a summary of throughout the 20 years, and you'll notice the second column, which has the existing coupons. That is for each amortization, for each line there. People who are getting paid their principal on the bonds that they bought are at 4.2 this year, 4.35, and notice that the longer you go out, the higher the interest rate, and that generally is because of the uncertainty in the longer period of time that you have your money invested. So what you're paying right now, what is the 4.5? We predict that that the current rates would be the next to the last column, which is 1.95 all the way down to 3.05, and the green line, the green column at the very end, is a difference in interest savings from what you have right now to what it would be after refunding. The next page is actually the same information, except it's in dollars and cents. In column A, you notice that what you're paying for these bonds is approximately $550,000 a year. After refunding, you would be paying $474, and I'm just looking at the very top line, with a savings of approximately $80,000 a year. In savings, total savings, if you look at the green column, at the bottom it says 1.679177. So in actual dollars, future dollars, it's actual savings of almost $1.7 million. If you're looking at today's value without inflation, it would be $1.2 million. So Bobby will address a couple of the other items that are here, including other bond debt that you have out there that you are paying right now, and obviously, like the auditor said, you have the amounts necessary to take care of those bonds. This will be helpful to you in that respect.
So
Now,
this here is refinancing. So right now, without refinance, when would our date end as far as us repaying this?
20 more years.
20 more years.
We took out these bonds in 2007.
Okay.
2007, and
20 years from.
you took them out for 30 years.
It ends to 2040.
2040.
So 20 more years.
20 years, yeah. Took them out in 2007, so it's 20 more years. So, and it'll be the same, whether you refund or not. The amortization period does not extend. It's the same period of years. It's just that on a
Just
yearly
be the-
basis, you're saving money.
2 points less in a sense.
Yeah.
As
It's
far
not
as
like
the
some of our
refund.
loans, I'll go and,
Yeah.
lower my payment, but I extend the years, many of us do that. But this is not the case here. Same
So
number.
this is not the case. It's the same number of years, except that it's at a lower rate
That is correct.
than what we have at this time.
That's correct. Yes. So the steps that you have here is, and we if you'll notice, well, Bobby will speak to the timeline, but if you'll notice on the timeline, you have, we're extending the timeline because we want to continue to work closely with administration, but also because your 2018 audit needs to come in.
Right.
Before, Frost Bank has committed, to very, very strongly to buy these bonds. They are willing to take an investment in this particular district, this particular city. So, but they need your latest financials. And so we're set, I think we have them selling in
September. Yeah, just to reiterate that, what the Frost has told us and probably other banks that we'll talk to, if you look to page 8, it's just a timeline of presenting the plan of finance today. This is really to get the ball rolling because I know in speaking to Mr. Perez and Mr. Cantuz that it appears that the audits are going in a pretty good trajectory, and it looks like Mr. Hernandez says hopefully in August, and I know some deadlines to apply for grants, other things like that. So really, this is to get the ball rolling, and Mr. Perez the bond attorney can elaborate a little more, but essentially we'll go through a lot of due diligence as you see in that there. But essentially, we would want to price the bonds hopefully by September 18th, sell them, and hopefully get the bond proceeds to you by October in time for your budget. The other thing also, in going back to page 6, one other reminder, there's a list of bonds out there, and again, like Dr. De Los Santos said, the C is the one we're looking to refinance, the B and A have 0. If you look at 2010, the second one, in February of 2020, that one will become callable or refinanceable at that time. So that's another thing that we're hoping that if the stars align, you have your audits in August, that not only refinancing that one currently, and perhaps going for that one as well, probably hopefully spring of next year. And again, these are all having to do with water and sewer projects, right? So I know you're doing a rate study, so this is things that we need to probably talk to and with your consultant on the rate study. But these are all things that are going to help you with your rates, because we're trying to give you some capacity in your debt service. But with that, I'll just.
Yeah, the second section is just market update. We don't want to go on there. But this is for your reading pleasure. what the market has done over a period of time. And of course, we're in a good market right now. 4 or 5 months from now, we may be in a better market, we may be in a slightly worse market. So the numbers that I could fluctuate some. The 17% could be a 10% or it could be a 20%. It just depends. 17%, we say in the market is out of the ballpark. I mean, that's,
So
when somebody gets that kind of savings, it's pretty good.
at what point in time do you lock in rates based on this schedule?
You don't. You get the rates on the date of the sale.
That would be,
September 18th.
Let's
So-
say that we sell September 18th, whatever the market dictates
so
on
if
that
everything
day.
goes forward as of today, then September 18th would be the closest date that you can say, more or less, or very close to that, you'll be locking in rates. Because that's
Lock
when you
them in.
actually sell them.
We price like September the 18th, and we come before you that evening and report to you what happened.
And
And we'll communicate with you, we'll say, Rick, Mr. Pettis can talk to the authority that the order would give us is, give us an opportunity to study the market with bond counsel, with you all, and, you know, we'll call you, we'll say, hey, the market is good today. You know,
But between
you
now
will
and
be
then,
saving.
this percentage could go up or down
Yes,
because of the rate changes.
that's correct.
Okay. How
And once you lock
volatile-
once you lock it in, it's fixed rate. It's no variable or, okay.
But how much change have you seen in the last 3 months of the market in the next 3
It won't
months?
change.
It's been good.
It's
been
good
pretty
for the last
steady.
2 years. The
Okay.
only ones wondering why you haven't refunded this is the bondholders. You probably haven't done it because of your audits.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, they won't price until that last audit comes in, so that's why we're aiming in September,
Right
because
after
hopefully
August.
August is, everything's in.
Yeah, that's what has held us back from doing the refinancing.
If the audit is not completed in time in August, we can still refinance later on the year, or we have to wait a certain time?
Yeah.
We'll probably come back before you, give you an update on the market and what's going on. And I believe the ordinance is for 6 months.
Yes.
If we don't get it done in 6 months, then we would come back before you and get an extension to do that, based on the audit. I heard him say that he was shooting for early part of August. I don't want to put Mr. Castillo under.
Right.
And I will say that both Mr. Perez and Mr. Cantu have been very, very easy to work with. And we've been, trying to get a feel for how we can help you best. Is there any questions?
Now, as far as timelines, when is, let's say we wanted to digest it as we move forward here, I mean, what are we looking at as far as us to move on an ordinance? And what would the timeline be, let's say next month or the following month? Or is this something that, what does the commission feel on this? I mean, do we have time? I mean, at this point, let's say in a month from now, because I'm sure that the commission is wanting to digest this, which it sounds great. And I mean, when you're looking at the numbers, but digesting it with staff as well, that's something we definitely would like to do.
I know there was a question about that we have to go through an attorney because there's only a select number of attorneys that do this.
For bond counsel,
Yes.
the reason that we suggested Mr. Perez is there's two attorneys that do this.
By the way, no affiliation, no, we're Pettis, but we're not related.
We're not right. There's two attorneys that do this in the valley.
Yes,
Mr. Perez and Mr. Ramirez from San Juan.
okay.
So Ramirez has done some work for you all before. We were moving on this pretty fast because we were working with so I asked him from one day to the next if he was in a position to prepare. Mr. Ramirez is out of the country. And he said that he was ready to prepare an ordinance, for your perusal, for your consideration.
Right.
As far as when you can approve this ordinance, you could approve it tonight, you could approve it next month.
But we're still good with timelines, because at the end, it depends on our 2018 audit, right? I mean, at the end, that's really what we
That's
need to
correct.
focus on, to make sure that that's in place so we can move over and
But I
make
would
sure that.
suggest that you not wait until after the audit
Right.
commences. You need to commence this because if you look at the timeline, there's a lot of work that goes on in our offices and the offices of bond counsel, communications with Attorney General's office, preparation. Before it's all over, you'll get a book that everything you ever wanted to know about Rio Grande City ISD, a lot of work.
You mean
between-
city? You're at the wrong place, it's over there somewhere.
My apologies. I've been before the court at least 30 times in the last 20 years. So I apologize.
Can you elaborate a little bit more about the role of bond counsel and what is our commitment to them? I mean, yeah.
Mayor, Commissioners, Council. Again, my name is Ricardo Perez. I'm an attorney in McAllen, Texas, and I'm a bond lawyer. Most of my practice revolves around municipal debt. I represent cities, school districts, counties. I also represent the underwriters, the banks that actually buy this debt. Over the last 10 years, I've probably done 250 transactions throughout the state. When I gotta go do work elsewhere because cities and schools don't issue debt or refinance debt every year. You come around once a year or once every 2 years and stuff like that, right? But basically, a financing is a two-pronged deal. You've got the financial advisors that identify what debt you have. Like in this situation, you've got 2007 bonds that have been issued at 5-point-something% interest rate. Those bonds are 30-year bonds, and they have a 10-year call feature which cannot be called within 10 years. After 10 years, you can call them, which is what you're doing now. Their role is to identify the financing, put a plan of finance together. They'll present to you guys, which this is a plan of finance. They will get with the rating agencies that will give you a rating, which is a credit of the city, and there'll be rating calls. They're involved. Obviously, the better credit rating that the city has, the better the interest rate they're going to get with the bonds. Then you guys identify an underwriter, or you can give them authority to identify an underwriter, which would be a person who would buy those bonds. In this case, I know they mentioned Frost would be interested in buying them. Once these bonds are sold, then basically, give you an example of this timeline here. If they're sold on September the 18th, then the bond lawyer's got to create a transcript of about 40 different documents, and they have to be sent to the State Attorney General's office, the Public Finance Division, and they have to approve the transaction. And then we have to, once that's approved, we got to get that and register it with the Comptroller's office. The bond lawyer's role is actually to do all the legal work to formalize a transaction. And to start off, if you approve the plan of finance, you have to approve an order, which is the order that we submitted to the city. And that's about 40 page order. And that ordinance gives, number one, authorizes the refunding and gives us the authority to move forward with doing all this stuff. There's going to be an offering document, which is called like a prospectus, but it's called the official statement. That's probably about, with audits and everything in there, maybe about 140 page document that gets sent out to the investors that want to bid on your bonds. But basically, my role is to formalize the transaction and make all the legal documents for the transaction. Get it approved by the state, get it registered with the comptrollers, and then my job is to do the closing. Authorize when the date that we have for the closing, make sure everything's done, everything's approved, and authorize the underwriters to wire the money to your city. That's my role, or the role of bond counsel. And like I said, I've been doing this for...
How do you get paid in all this? Help me understand the financials from how all this works.
Hold on, let me get this here real quick.
We have a contract with you.
Okay, so you would have a contract with them?
All of us.
We have a contract
with you.
Us, and
right.
You would have another one. Our contract specifies exactly where we get paid. If we help you with the financing of 5 million, 7 million, 3 million, it's on the schedule. And it should be next to the last, I don't have it with me, but it should be the next to the last page of the contract. We have
This,
but it's not in here, right?
It's
no,
not.
no.
This,
We have a contract 2022. We usually, we're hired for 5-year periods.
Yeah.
More to the benefit of the client than to our benefit. There's a 30-day clause in there where we could be terminated.
Right.
it's like all professional services contracts you can terminate in 30 days. And the reason you have that long term is because if you do this transaction now, you could be talking to your city staff for a month, 6 months, a year, 18 months, trying to do a different transaction. I was just trying to figure out a different way to finance different things. And, that's why it stretches out. But as far as the cost to the city, if you see on page 3 where you see the savings, the cost of issuance, right, which would be the FA fees, the bond attorney fees, the state, the rating agency fees, the underwriter's fees, the AG's fees, they're already all factored into your savings. So the city you're never gonna pay or make a check for 1 single cent. All the fees are already factored in here. So let's give you an example. Let's assume that total fees are $75,000 for everything. Well, that should have been $1,350,000, the savings. Follow me? So you take all your cost of issuance of the transaction out of the savings. So the city never writes a check for anything. All you're gonna do is, when you're gonna make your next debt payment service, is gonna be minus the $80,000 or $40,000 every 6 months.
The thing about the contract, his as well as ours, we will never bill you for anything unless there's a deal that's finished. When you get the money, we're already paid to get the
Right, through the.
And the advantage that is to the district is that the one contract with for 5 years.
You mean cities, sir?
He calls right here.
Yeah,
You don't ever want to be without a financial advisor.
we only get paid if a deal gets done. I'll give you an example. I did a ton of work at the Edinburgh School District bond election. It failed. I mean, we had 100 hours into it apiece, and it's just gone.
We will get paid.
Okay.
So that's the only, you won't get any bills from us if you don't get the money in the bank.
All right, and again, just to be clear, that'd be the date that it's set, which would be, let's say, sometime in September, and whatever rate that is at that time, that's the rate that it would be locked in.
That's
Right? And it's a fixed rate, and it's, again, not the number of years, because the years are the same, it's just gonna be a lower interest rate, which would be, well, 2 points less. Because they'd go from 5 point something, was it 5.1 to 3.121? So 3.1, okay. 2 point something. All right.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
So, are we gonna table all 3 items, Mayor?
Oh, Commissioner?
Gentlemen, thank you for the information. I think it's very, very, very important. But just on my opinion, I know just this first time I hear about it, and I would like for the staff to have a little more dialogue about this transaction. So I would like to make a motion to table this item, bring it back at a later date.
Okay. We have a motion to table item, which is 6E, 7A, 4A.
Yeah, why don't we do a motion to table each one individually?
Okay.
Okay.
So then let's do one each or
So do you wanna go back to 4A?
4A?
Start with 4A.
And then once we can keep going down the agenda,
No,
Mayor?
you can do the motion on each one right now.
Each one
Yeah,
individually.
might as well. Okay, so let's start with 4A.
I so move to table item 4A.
We have a motion to table item 4A by Commissioner Ramirez,
Second.
second by Commissioner Flores. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. Motion carries. Then we move on to 6E.
I so move, Mayor, that we table this item, 6E.
6E, tabled by Commissioner Ramirez,
Second.
second by Commissioner Flores. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed. Motion carries. Then item 7A.
I move that we table item 7A.
Okay, we have a motion to table item 7A by Commissioner Ramirez,
Second.
second by Commissioner Flores. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next, business and orders item.
Mr. Perez, comment.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to let you guys know, like, whether you decide to use their FA or my bond firm, if you do your own, we'd love to do the work, obviously, but it's do the transaction, because it's a savings for the city, and it's just money you'll be throwing away if you don't do it. It's free savings.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. And continue to have that conversation, Mr. Perez, on this, and we can have a workshop on there, whatever we need to do to make sure we get to the bottom of this as far as the sooner the better.
Okay.
Next item is 5A resolutions. 5A, discussion and possible action to approve Resolution 2019-9, accepting the dedication of that certain real property, lots 37 and 38, Garza's Hillside Haven, number 2, Rio Grande City, Starr County, Texas.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
Mr. Milad, how are you, sir?
Doing good.
All right.
Over 16 years ago, this plat was recorded as Garza's Hillside Haven number 2. Those 2 lots we're talking about, they serve as a detention pond for the recent developments. After 2010, that subdivision was filled with new homes from people from Mexico that came to migrated here and bought many homes constructed. Anyways, these lots have served as a retainage area. However, the banks never properly deeded, the developer never deeded those 2 lots to the city of Rio Grande to put a plat note, but never did it. So they discovered they're still paying taxes on it, and it is obviously in our best interest of the city to remain as detention lots. Otherwise, the bank's going to try to sell them to build new homes. But again, our interest is to accept these lots and remain as detention areas.
Okay.
Otherwise, basically, the risk of not doing it is the neighbors, they can literally get possible flooding issues.
And these 2 lots are, refresh my memory, exactly where?
They're on Teodora Drive. The city actually has been maintaining it for the longest time.
So we maintain them already?
Yes.
We cut the grass there?
Yes, sir.
And we're using them as
detention areas.
detention areas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Typically, they're supposed to deed them over a year after they've done the development. Is that correct, Mr.? That's correct. Okay.
Yeah.
So no issues there?
No.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? Not, if we entertain a motion?
I so move to approve item 5A.
Okay, we have a motion to,
That has to be specific.
Okay.
Motion.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. I motion to approve item 5A. Motion to accept the dedication of lots 37 and 38 Hillside Haven, number 2, and authorize the city manager or his designee to enter into all appropriate legal documents to secure the same.
okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Ramirez.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed? Motion carries. Next is item 5B, discussion and possible action to approve Resolution 2019-10, approving the 2019 Water Conservation Plan. Mr. Cruz?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to address item 5B and 5C. The first one is obviously, like you said earlier, the water conservation plan, and all it is just updating it for the fiscal year of 2019. This is a requirement by TCEQ standards, so we just need to get these signed and sent back out to TCEQ.
Okay, so then at this time, we're addressing both item 5B, discussion of Resolution 2019-10, and 5C, discussion and possible action to approve Resolution 2019-11.
Yes, sir.
Approving the 2019 Drought Contingency Plan.
Yes, sir. The first one is the water conservation plan, and the second one is the drought contingency plan for the city of Rio Grande City.
Okay.
And like I said, Mayor, all that we're doing is just updating the plans for this year. Nothing changes, and submitting it to TCEQ.
Any further questions on items 5B and 5C?
And you said that we're updating these plans according to the TCEQ recommendations?
Yes, sir.
Can you give us some specific details of what exactly is going to be updated?
Well, actually, nothing's really being updated except for the year. It's the same plan. It's a 5 to 10 year plan, and I know our engineers have had a chance to look at this as well too. This is brought to me by Mr. Bassan. So the drought contingency plan basically consists of just the declaration of policy, public involvement, the education, the process of what we would have to go through if for some reason we were to come into a drought, and the water conservation plan, talks about the specific quantified 5-10 year targets as far as water conservation and things of that nature. The metering systems, the metering devices that need to be used, and everything of that nature. So all we're doing is just updating it so that we can submit it. We're trying to make sure we're on top of things with TCEQ, and Mr. Bassan was working very diligently on this, so we want to make sure that we get that signed and submitted to TCEQ as soon as possible.
Have we, I don't recall being in any type of drought conditions, or have we in the last few years, where we have to enforce a conservation plan?
Is that part of the plan?
Or a conservation
that's part of
effort?
this- that's part
Right,
of
but
this.
have we had to
Enforce any type of-
enforce any type? I don't remember, has it been
Unfortunately,
that
I wouldn't
many
be
years?
able to answer that question.
As far as I remember, those years, I've been with the firm for 7 years. They've been in effect, but I don't think there were any kind of enforcement.
Right, where we have to go into conservation mode.
Essentially, once they approve, the DUD department is to enforce them.
Right.
Regulating the wiring of the plants, leaks and all that, and.
Or certain days, that sort of, certain days,
Yes, sir.
certain houses water it, other days.
And that has all that information is here, odd watering days versus even, moderate water shortage conditions versus mild, severe, critical, and an emergency. So it basically goes through the whole breakdown of what we need to do.
And the reason I ask is because I don't recall having to.
Ever do that?
Having to do that at this time.
Hicimos eso, Ray.
Has it
When
been that
I
many
think
years?
like 7 years ago, didn't we do something
Probably,
like that?
probably longer than that. I think I recall.
Probably longer than-
Yeah.
As far as GCQ regulations,
Right.
you update those every year, probably they were just.
And hopefully we don't have to come back to that.
Hopefully we have it
have
in place
enough
back then
water,
as well,
right?
too.
to
I
not
guess the
have
key
to-
question is what would trigger the enforcement?
If it's stipulated on the.
I guess that would be a call that comes from TCEQ, when there is an actual water.
Because some cities just religiously do it every year, no matter what's going on.
Yeah, just to
And
conserve.
that you only are allowed to water certain days, twice a
I
week.
think McAllen does that, right, in
Yeah.
the summertime?
You don't have a choice. If not, then code enforcement comes around and
Yeah.
you get a ticket.
All right, do we have a motion then at this time?
I shall move.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Approve items 5B and C.
Okay, they have to be, because the resolutions, they have to be separate. And
Okay.
on the 5B, you can motion to approve 2019 water conservation plan.
Okay, so I move to approve item 5B, resolution 2019-10, approving the 2019 water conservation plan.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Ramirez. We have second by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye opposed. Motion carries. Next item is 5C, discussion and possible action, 2019, approving the 2019 drought contingency plan. Have a motion then at this time to approve.
I move to approve resolution 2019-11, approving the 2019 drought contingency plan.
Okay, by Commissioner Ramirez. Have a second.
Second.
Commissioner Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye opposed. Motion carries. Next business and orders item 5D, discussion and possible action to approve resolution 2019-12, authorizing to suspend statement of intent to change rates proposed by AEP Texas and authorize the city of Rio Grande City to intervene in the company's rate case proceeding before the Public Utility Commission in docket number 49494.
Basically, I think we discussed this about 2 years ago. I think the city of McAllen started suing AEP because of the rate changes. And so basically, there's no cost to the city. What you would do here is you would authorize the law firm of Gosnick, Lloyd Gosnick, who is most of the bunch of cities throughout Texas have passed this resolution. McAllen has done it. He's representing the cities. The statute allows for AEP to pay the attorney's fees, and they're suing because of the rate changes. Basically, that's what 2 years ago I think you addressed this, and the resolution just gives them permission to continue going forward with this.
It's been in the newspaper the last few weeks regarding these rate hikes.
Correct. And again, there would not be a cost to the city. The firm, the statute allows AEP to pay for the attorney's fees, and basically you're just giving authorization to that particular firm.
Any further questions on that item?
Perez, what's your recommendation, Mr. Perez?
We recommend we proceed.
Okay.
Yeah,
Special.
Yeah, it has to be.
I'm sorry.
you want to read your motions or?
I move to authorize the city to suspend the statement of intent to change rates proposed by AEP Texas and authorize the City of Rio Grande City to intervene in the company's rate case proceeding before the Public Utility Commission in docket number 49494, and to authorize Lloyd Gosling Law Firm to conduct the same on behalf of the City of Rio Grande City.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-12 by Commissioner Flores, second by Commissioner Ramirez. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I opposed. Motion carries. Next, business and orders, item 6, City Manager's Report. Letter A, discussion and possible action to declare certain equipment as surplus. 6A.
Mayor and Commissioner, we got some surplus equipment from Police Department, is that correct?
Yes, it's a Ford Crown Victoria and a Chevrolet Tahoe. Joey's here.
Hello, Chief.
How you doing? We're trying to get rid of some of our old equipment that is no longer in use to make space, hopefully, for the 3 new Tahoes we're getting through Operation Stone Guard. So we'll recycle some of that old equipment if allowed.
What are we gonna do with that equipment, by the way?
Sell it in auction.
Sell it?
Yes.
On average, how much y'all get for these type of vehicles?
It all depends. There are some times that they go kind of high.
What's the mileage more or less? Like you're talking over 200,000 miles?
Most of it is 170, 180.
Okay.
It's in the high hundreds. It's most of the time the units that the maintenance on is getting just a little bit too
costly?
Yeah, too costly for us. So we would see better for us just to get rid of it.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question, to see if those vehicles are offered to other departments within our city to see if, they can have some use for them.
Yes,
But like you said, if maintenance is getting too costly, then it doesn't make any sense for us to keep them.
The units that, that the cost isn't too much, but the mileage is kind of high, we do offer it to other departments. But we don't want to throw a burden to them and have them take on costly mechanic work.
Yeah. Okay. Have a motion at this time?
On this, you can just approve or.
No special.
No special warning. All right, give me another paper.
Es que todo así.
¿Quiere leer? Acá la pasa para la esquina de abajo.
Oh. All right, moving on. Comedic relief, all right. You have a motion to approve item 6A by Commissioner Ramirez.
Second.
That's second by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is item 6B, discussion and possible action to approve the Rio Grande City Public Library Technology Plan. 6B.
This
Yes.
is from Ms. Foltz, I'm sorry.
No,
This is
go
from
ahead.
Ms. Foltz. She said she wasn't gonna be able to make it, but this is a technology plan that you approve every 5 years to be in compliance with E-rate. She says it's for the Child Protective Internet Services that they provide at the library.
Were we not trying to get into the same E-rate programs repentance for all the other city services?
We got it.
We did?
It took us a while. Actually, one helped us get there. We finally got it.
Okay.
We're at the point now that we're not having to pay and get reimbursed. We're actually being discounted up front.
Good.
So we're where we're supposed to be several years ago.
Very good. All right, so move.
Okay, have a motion to approve item 6B by Commissioner Ramirez, second by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is item 6D, discussion and possible action to authorize city manager to negotiate and execute all documents needed for the financing of a new 2019 Freightliner 114 SD TRA Vector truck for the Public Utilities Department.
Mayor and Commissioner, Mr. Cruz is gonna talk about the deal he got on it.
Okay.
Obviously, the truck is ready, but we've got to execute this before we get delivery.
Yeah, this is just a formality, Mayor, Commissioners. At the direction of the commission, at the last meeting that we met, we talked about some of the expenses we were wasting on the current unit that is sitting there. It's not being used. We're spending about $3,000 a month in a monthly payment for a vehicle that's a unit that's not even being used. This new unit that we're going to be buying is actually a bigger unit, and our payments are looking to be maybe about $1,000 more. But they're paying off our current unit, so we're not rolling any negative equity, and they're actually giving us a little bit more. So we owe $29,000, and we were able to negotiate it for them to give us $32,000 for it. So we rolled over a little bit of positive equity. I'll go more into details about some of the costs later on with you, but overall, we're gonna have a savings of about $17,000 a month just by purchasing this unit. So, and I'll go more in depth of that with you later on.
What's the warranty on it? I mean, what's gonna be the warranty?
That was the big deal. We had multiple agencies, multiple businesses that we were negotiating with to see where we can get the best bang for the buck. But this one has a 10-year plan, and the biggest thing, and I know Leonel's I've been getting his blessings throughout the whole way on this purchase. We're moving the first payments. We don't make a payment for the whole entire first year. So we prolong the payments for the first year, so we don't make our first payment, if I'm not mistaken, right, Leo? Till next year. So that helps us out a little bit as well too. But yes,
the warranty is 10 years.
Yes,
In other
sir.
words, what I don't want to happen is the same thing that happened to the previous
and we made
truck.
sure of that. So
Okay.
the actual material that they use for this one is completely different than what they use from the other one. Mr. Perez, myself, I had the guys, Enrique, Roger, everyone actually take the unit out, and you probably saw it out in the city. We put it to good use. We wanted to make sure if we were buying this thing that it was going to be able to do everything that we needed to do and more. So they cleaned manholes, they cleaned pipes, they did everything. Some of the new lift stations that we just constructed needed cleaning already, and they did everything. So we feel pretty confident with this unit.
Okay.
And like I said, it's a bigger unit. The downside is that it does require a CDL license driver, but I've talked to some of the employees here in the city to see about maybe them going out to get their CDL license, just similar to what we did to Mo, pursuing that CDL license and possibly looking at incentivizing them for being able to get that certification and that license as well too.
So we were spending about approximately $3,000 a month on the old unit.
Yes, sir.
And we're also spending $10,000 to $18,000 a month because we don't have that unit. We have to contract somebody to do it for us. So the savings alone, just in the unit alone, is huge.
It'll pay for itself.
Yes.
Even though our payments going up exactly, and I don't have the exact numbers right now, but it's more or less we're paying $3,000 before. We're paying $4,300. We will be paying $4,300. So it's a difference about $1,300. But when you talk about the
Well, we're not paying the extra, in other words, right?
Correct.
The having to.
Yeah, when you talk about the services, and I'll show you that.
The contract work, we're not gonna have to pay because we have our own, we have the staff to
Yes, sir.
take care of.
Correct.
And the contract work alone was going anywhere between $15,000 to $18,000 a month that we were having to pay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
yes, sir.
And again, the warranty, everything was good,
Yes, sir.
so we'll be, all right.
Yes.
That was the number one thing that Mr. Perez made sure that I addressed right from the start was he let me know of the issues that you had before in the past with that unit, and he didn't want to have those same issues with this new one. So I think it's and I don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure it's a 10-year warranty. That's why we were saying, oh, it's a no-brainer for that.
And they tested it out already,
Yes, sir.
personnel and
Multiple times. We had Roger, Enrique, and Mr. Basan take it out with the guys, and we put it through some.
Okay.
Through some.
So they reviewed it, they were good with it, they're
Yes,
the
sir.
ones that will be using it, so.
I actually
they're-
have a picture
they're
of it.
approved by them, in other words.
I actually have a picture of it that I'd like to show you guys later on.
Then great. Do we have then at this point a motion? Anyone aside from Commissioner Ramirez? All right, so. ¿Cuál es?
Just say I move. I so move.
It's 60, item 60.
I so move to approve 6D, Mayor.
All right, we have a motion to approve item 6D by Commissioner Jones.
I'll second the motion.
Have a second by Commissioner Ramirez. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye opposed? Motion carries.
Tenía miedo que sacara un papel
Ya se me acabaron.
Ya se me acabaron. All right, so we already had 6E and 7A, then moving on to, am I skipping anything?
No, 7B.
So 7B, discussion and possible action to approve the lease agreement with Norma Sepúlveda, DBA Main Street Nutrition for rental rental premises at 408 East Main Street, 7B.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is a small unit on Tijerina, Pet Tijerina, and she's gonna be selling Herbalife shakes, so it's healthy.
Is that the building facing Main Street or is that towards the back?
Facing Main Street, correct? It's a small one in the.
Right next to the bistro.
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
smallest one left in the front, street, the Main
Next to
Street.
the bistro and next to Nancy, between Nancy and the bistro.
Okay.
Well, Mayor, just, since we're just talking about this, Mayor, I would really like for the people that are renting there, you know, for them to be present, you know, when they're getting the contract and when they're renewing. I would like for, you know, for the renters to be here, you know, I think that we need to see their faces. You know, when they come in, you know. I know.
Mr.
but we
Sepulveda,
have-
now that you mentioned it, tell us a little bit about what you're gonna do, Mr. Sepulveda.
Well, it's an Herbalife, it's called Herbalife, and it's shakes, like you can drink it in the morning and a tea, and it's a supplement for your breakfast or lunch or dinner, and hopefully you can make it work there.
So it'll be open every day or what time, what
Yes,
time?
every day, probably from 7:30 or 7 till 9.
Very good.
And how many pounds are you promising now? All right, so for everybody listening, guaranteed to lose weight. Thank you, Mr. Sepulveda. Okay, so we have any further discussion?
No, I still move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 7B by Commissioner Ramirez,
Second.
second by Commissioner Flores. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye opposed. Motion carries. Good luck, Mr. Sepulveda. Congratulations.
And when y'all want to be there, when y'all be there, we'll get a shake, a tea.
All right.
Thank you, thank
On the
you.
house.
And promise to lose weight, yes.
¿Cuál está seguida del por?
The bistro, yeah.
Yeah, between
The
Bistro
one
and
que
Mesa.
está cerca?
Next to the bistro.
Next, business and orders, item 8, appointments and memberships. Letter A, discussion and possible action to reappoint members to the Rio Grande City 4B Economic Development Corporation. 8A,
I believe Ms. Guillen is out right now with a child at school, but we got Mr. Milan stepping in for her.
Yes. So let me this memorandum from the Rio Grande City 4B Economic Development Corporation. Welcomes the appointment of the following individuals to the Board of Directors for Rio Grande City EDC. Mr. Ray Ramirez, reappointment term to expire May 2021. Ms. Lori Perez, reappointment term to expire May 2021. And Mr. Dave Jones, reappointment term to expire 2021.
I have a motion at this time.
I move to approve item 8, Mayor.
Here we have a motion to approve
I'll second the motion.
item 8A by Commissioner Flores. Have a second by Commissioner Ramirez. Any further discussion? None? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, 8B, selection of Mayor Pro Tempore.
Mayor, I think everybody knows you are Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, our current Mayor Pro Tem is Mr. Hernán Garza.
Yes.
Third, and Commissioner Garza. This time, do we have a, do we have to,
There to, I guess, reappoint or leave Nunez in the position.
okay, is that the correct terminology, or do we?
Hernán Garza the third.
Hernán Garza the third as Mayor Pro Tem by Commissioner Jones.
I'll second the motion.
Have a second by Commissioner Ramirez. Any further discussion? Then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to Commissioner Garza, once more.
Mayor, I think.
Did he want it?
Well, he's got it.
I think nine-
Hey, that's what happens for not being here today.
You gotta take one for the
You've
team.
been volunteered.
And Mayor, for the sake of time, the next one I'm planning, you
Okay.
can do all together.
All right, moving on to item 9, planning. Letter A, discussion and possible action on request by Rio Delta Engineering for preliminary approval of the Rosalba Cortez subdivision, Rio Grande City, Stark County, Texas. Letter B, discussion and possible action on request by Rio Delta Engineering for preliminary approval of the estates of Rio Vista subdivision, Letter C, discussion and possible action on request by AEC Engineering for preliminary approval of the Northgate Phase 2 subdivision. Letter D, discussion and possible action on request by AEC Engineering for preliminary approval of the Northgate Phase 3 subdivision. And letter E, discussion and possible action on request by AEC Engineering for preliminary approval of the Los Ranchos de la Estrella Phase 4 subdivision.
If I may add, all these items A through E, have been recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Having said
No
that,
issues with any of them, they've been approved?
Correct.
Perfect. Okay.
They're all residential subdivisions.
Any questions on these items, or if not, we have a motion at this time?
Yeah, motion to approve items 9A, B, C, and D, and E.
Okay, have a motion to approve.
Second.
By Commissioner Ramirez, have a second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Again, items 9, planning, A, B, C, D, and E. Next, business and orders, item 10, executive session, chapter 551, Texas Government Code, section 551.071, consultation with attorney, and section 551.074, personnel matters, letter A, B, C, D, E, and F. It is 6:40 p.m. Okay, we have back from executive session, reconvene, item 11, it is 8:06 p.m. into regular session in consideration of action on matters discussed during executive session, including the following. No action on item 11A, no action on item 11B, no action on 11C, no action on item 11D, there's no action on item 11E, and then we have number 11F, discussion and possible action regarding the contract of the city attorney, including but not limited to amending the existing agreement.
Mayor, I so move to authorize the extension of the current city attorney contract with the law office of Calixto Villarreal for 12 months as discussed in executive session.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Jones.
I'll send motion.
Have a second by Commissioner Ramirez. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This time, if no one objects, meeting is adjourned. No objection, meeting adjourned. It is 8:07 p.m.
I need a motion, Mayor.
So move
Which one?
to adjourn.
I was by general consent. I was doing the general consent, but if that doesn't apply. All right, so, all right.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Ramirez.
All right, so
second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Jones to adjourn. We have a motion by Commissioner Ramirez, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Motion carries, meeting adjourned.